Inside versus outside. These are terms that get used in fencing terminology all the time, even back in early sources in, for instance, the German tradition. So what do those mean? How do we think about it so that when Meyer says inside versus outside flat, for instance, it makes sense? We'll talk about that next. Jevtsai, Forte Swordplay. So today, there's a topic I want to talk about that comes up very periodically. It doesn't come up a lot of the time, but especially if you're looking at certain sources like Joachim Meyer, they will talk about things like inside versus outside. And what does that mean? So if we think about threat and targets, right? So from a martial arts perspective, I think a good way to just kind of keep inside versus outside straight is think about, targets and weapons, right? So very simply, anything that's sort of within this zone, these are where my targets are, and these are also where my weapons are that I can do things with. So from here, I can defend against these targets that are on my inside, okay? So anything where I can hug you, that's my inside, okay? Anything where you can get behind me, like, you know, if someone's gonna come up behind me and like suplex me, that would be like the ideal situation. They are most definitely on my outside. So basically, outside, inside, outside, inside, or if I'm on this side, since with Longsword, you know, when we're doing fencing, it's very simple that, you know, to my left is inside, to my right is outside. But if we've got something on the other side, which happens in Longsword all the time, inside, outside. Okay, so if that's the case, we're gonna do a bind in a second and actually show a couple of like key cases here. So where it gets more complicated is there's an inside and outside for both myself and my opponent, right? So generally, this will be my inside, right? My inside, I'm covering. If they manage to get to here, this is going to be my outside. So this, for me, would be an inside bind. This would be an outside bind. I want my opponent here. I do not want them here. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the relationship between my inside-outside against my opponent's inside-outside. Okay, so now if Andre comes forward here, so when we bind, as I was saying, inside, so this is what I would call an inside-inside bind, okay? So if I make a small little adjustment, and actually, by the way, from here, one way that you can sort of test to see if it's an inside bind, if I push forward, oh look, there's something in the way. And also if Andre pushes forward, oh, there's something in the way. I'm covering that inside line. We both are. I do this. Now from here, again, if we do that very simple test, when I go forward, nothing is between me and the target. I'm on Andre's outside. I'm behind his weapon. If he pushes forward towards me, oh dear Lord, I have nothing without movement to protect myself. He's on my outside as well. So inside, inside, great, stalemate. Outside, outside, double hit city, right? So then the other piece is here. If I come here, if Andre comes forward, this is covered. And in fact, actually, if he does it again, not great for Andre, right? So I'm on his outside, he is on my inside. And so from a tactical perspective, if you can get an inside-outside bind where you're on the inside, that's great. That's where you want to be actually trying to maneuver yourself in general when you're fencing. And then similarly, if we're here and you flip the other way, so other foot forward, yeah, there we go, right? So similarly, this is covering my inside, but on his outside, right? So these will be kind of positions where not only do I want to take advantage of this, but also raise up. So I can add things, I can combine things, I can stack things where I want to get my inside against his outside and also my strong against his weak That's a great place to be in order to sort of like stack your advantages from a fencing tactical world. So coming back to here, inside, outside. So long story short, back to Meyer, when we talk about inside flat versus outside flat, outside flat, which gets tricky now if he starts thinking about things like spheric, right? If we're actually going to be doing things where we actually start flipping, we got to keep track. But if we're, again, thinking about usually right-handed person, so this will be inside, this will be outside, which means if I'm doing things like spheric, inside flat, outside flat, inside flat, outside flat, inside flat, outside flat, okay? Inside, outside. And that's it, okay? So hopefully it'll be useful if you ever need to think about inside versus outside for the German longsword.